And he hands me a card. It's his dad's card. And he goes, my dad told me if I ever saw somebody handle a high pressure situation and not lose any composure or anything, I'm supposed to send them to him. The card, Deputy Director of the FBI. That's in my back pocket.
Welcome everybody to the Warrior Podcast. Today I have a special guest. He's a dear friend and former floor trader. He's had a lot of other things going on. We're going to get right into it. Welcome, Mr. Chris Lang.
Thank you, Frank.
My
Good
pleasure.
to see you again.
Yes. I wanted to say this to you. I hadn't seen you for a long time. You know, we left the floor at different times and we ran into each other at golf outings and stuff like that. But you were there at Dorothy's memorial service. You got there to the church before me. And when I saw you stand there, it hit me in a good way. So I actually am writing a book about grief and the things that help me. And it's when you see somebody you haven't seen in a long time, it's very meaningful. Yeah. When I saw you and Brett, it was old friends coming.
Yeah, it's I think we have responsibilities as people, not as former traders or anything else, but when you know that somebody loses somebody that was close. And I only met Dorothy 2 or 3 times in the 30 some years I've known you. You know, it was a wedding here, a wedding there, and that was it, right? So, but that's not the point, right? I mean, so to be there for you.
Yeah.
To tell your kids that there's people who care about more than just, you know, a passing remembrance of Dorothy, but of knowing how this affects your dad. And I know how it affects them. And it's good to see that people from multi facets of your past will remember you and remember her for that.
Yep.
So
and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Like 3 or 4 months ago, I was, remember JP Oosterman?
Yeah.
His wife passed.
Oh boy.
And so it was tough. It was tough on him, obviously. And it was hard for me for that one because JP was one of my first same-aged friends on the floor. I mean, I was young. We're all young when we go to the floor.
Yeah.
But the group I was in, I was the youngest by far. And then they brought JP on. And then I met Joan like right after that. So it was weird. I was just like, oh, okay, this is a little more, this is closer and whatever to having a friend whose spouse passed. Not that, but I knew Joan well for years. And then they moved to Kalamazoo in a different way, right? So, and to see how he was affected and talking to him. And, it's like I said, for that one, I know I had to be there. Yeah. For Dorothy, I was going to do everything I could to get there, and everything worked out perfectly, right? It was one of those things. I would have called, I would have reached out if I couldn't make it or whatever, but just to be there is even better. And I had no plans on going to lunch. And then I think Marty Walsh goes, "Are you going to lunch?" I'm like, I don't know that if I should be there. It's in a weird way, how people look at things and where they belong or they don't belong, right? So like wakes, I'll go to a wake for whoever, friends, kid from grade school, his dad passed away a couple years ago. And was a wake funeral at in Arlington Heights. I was like, I'll go. It's close. So, but I have a hard time going to funerals for that because I think that's for the family. Mm-hmm. And that's their way to say goodbye to who they knew. But if I knew somebody who was even closer, a lifelong friend and neighbor, that would be different. But that's getting a little darker. Yeah. Whatever.
And we don't talk about death too much. We avoid it in our culture, which can be a problem in itself. But give JP my best. I haven't seen him and I hadn't thought about him. But what a great guy he was. I mean, just like a gentle giant.
Yeah, he was a good guy. He is a good guy, right? It's a great guy. Talk to him. Don't talk to him enough. We don't talk to. We can go into this later too, as we talk about stuff from the floor. I mean, he just we left the floor, became, that was our franchise, and we became disenfranchised, and there was nowhere else for us to go that we can meet and talk, right? Yeah. So
that's a really good way to put it too.
There's we'll talk about all this stuff a little bit later, but we do try. So Marco, Scotty, myself, a Paulie or two will end up going out for dinner. We try to do it every 6 weeks or so. And it's, as we're spread out, it gets a little more difficult. But I talk to a lot of those guys. But going back to, we'll talk a lot about things we've gone through. We're talking about death. 7, 8, Owen had to be 2016. One of his buddies.
Who's Owen?
My second oldest, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Everyone should know that. So my second oldest, one of his friends that he played basketball with, little brother, was hit by a car and killed. African-American family. But the kid Kobe was his name. Special needs, severely autistic and whatever. And somebody, whatever the story was, he ran across Palatine Road, big road, and got hit, and nobody's fault. And we went to that funeral. I went with Owen. And it was a Southern Baptist funeral. And I was like, you know what? They know how to do it. They celebrated that little boy's 5 or 6 years of life on this earth. And he's going where he's supposed to be. And I never felt better at a remembrance or a wake or whatever you want to call it than I did right there, right then, because I had never been to a funeral for a child, and I never want to be at another one. And I just felt I felt like this was the best thing for this family at that time. All the people were there. Everybody from the oldest sister of Owen's friend was a very good basketball player. So our high school, the high school that Owen went to, they were very good. And there were as many white people at this service as there were black people. And all the black, they knew what was coming. We didn't. And I was just like,
in terms of how they,
how they process. And I was just like, we're taught to fear things that maybe we shouldn't. And it's ingrained at a very young age. Not that we should go run around and, put ourselves in peril, right? That's not it at all. But the whole idea of coming home and whatever your beliefs are, I'm not going to get into anything like that, was so uplifting. And you could have been the staunchest atheist there. Something would have come up into you and been like, you may become agnostic at that point. You'd be like, oh, this is great. Yeah, maybe, right? So, but it was just, we can move on. But it was just seeing how different people would cope. Thought I'd bring that up. That's not even in my litany of notes here, but it was.
So, I'll add to that and then we can move on. Dorothy and I always argued about, I wanted to be cremated and throw celebration of life for me, feed them good food, give them good booze. And she insisted that I have a wake because people need closure, and we would argue about it. So we were at a wake of a good friend of ours, parent, and he lived to be old, and we were all standing in the back, me and my family, and Jackie, the person whose father died, came in the back and thanked us all and hugged us all. And then my son Pete goes, Dad, this is a real morbid thing that we do at these wakes and the caskets and all that stuff. And I said, hey, now that I have all my witnesses here, your mother insists that she's going to do this to me, but I want to be cremated and have a celebration of life instead. So if she insists on this, find an undertaker who can put me in a box like this, because that's how I'm going out, right? And then a sobering moment in the hospital with Dorothy, she knew she was checking out. We were still in hopeful problem-solving mode, and she just said, I don't want to be waked. I want to be cremated in a celebration of life. Yep. And then to your point, a lot of people afterwards, they're like, wow, this is the way I want to go out. This is way better than a wake. You feel good when you leave. So I actually put that in my book about grief that I'm writing, to consider the wake versus the celebration of life, because people feel a lot better when they leave that.
Yeah, and I think it's we'll talk more about this later. But as we talk about clubber and whatnot,
yes,
how that affected me, and compared to other people passing, but when someone's 95 and they pass and people are mournful and whatever, I was just like, you should be celebrating this. This person lived from what we saw, a great life. And Dorothy was late 60, I would say late 50s, 60. Too young. I mean, especially for you. I mean, no question. But there are people who would say, "I wish I had my mom to 60." Right.
Yes.
I mean,
I agree with you.
Everything's in perspective, and I'm not. Please do not take that as get your head out of your ass. So on and so forth.
I know. I'm with you on this.
But everybody has to look at things from perspective. We have it bad, but that was worse, and so on and so forth. And you have to compartmentalize things and whatnot, and not just look at things from everything is bad because this happened. Like if, who was it who passed? So guys I golf with on Wednesdays, they're all retired. So it's kind of like being on the floor again. All these guys 10 years older than me, 12, 15 years older. And one of someone's mother-in-law passed, but 96. And all the text, oh, so sorry. So I'm like, no, you have to celebrate this.
I agree.
It was 96 and she was, by all accounts, healthy until like 3 months before. Went out on her terms. Everything was great, right? So if she was 6 or 16 or 26, put another digit in front of that. Yeah, it is more impactful, right? But she impacted lives in a positive way for 96 years. And remember that, not the same thing with Dorothy for 60 years. And look at your pictures behind you and on the walls in here, and that's the legacy, right? You look at things that they talk about. It's kind of corny, but the dash, right? You're born this year and you die this year. All that matters is the dash, the in between, right? I mean, but that's at times like that. People say you should say that at the club or talk about the dash. And I'm like, nah, his dash wasn't long enough, right? But his dash was impactful. But we just kind of gloss over the meaning of what that dash is. And no one's dash. You're 96. It's it's the same hyphen, as if you're 6, right? So. But it's just things we look at and how we look at them, and we move on, but we don't forget. I think I told you once. It's just like we're talking about. It was more grief stuff, but stuff is not the right way to put it. But you're like, how do you deal with this stuff? And it's like you never stop grieving.
You carry the load forever,
and
it's you just hope to get better at carrying the load, right?
That's the Beatles song, carry that weight or something like that, and it's about them breaking up, but it's. They have to carry the weight of each other to try to be successful on their own, right? Or it's, but the further you get away from it, it doesn't hurt any less, but it doesn't hurt as often, right? Now there'll be something that you'll see, like,
something will trigger it.
A look from your granddaughter, your grandsons, or something your son does that looks just your mom did, and it's innate in him to do it as well. And it's just stuff like that. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, so I see that into my kids from the boys from Beth's dad. So it's very, they'll do things. They'll look at them like, yeah, so my grandpa would do right there and whatnot. And it's just, you remember those things. With Clubber, not as much. I mean, I just because we didn't really see him go. He got old to 32, right, and then that's where it stops, right. So to see the progression.
Yeah, let's save Clubber for the middle because we got a lot to talk about Clubber and brotherhood. So let's roll back the tape of Chris Lang's life to your beginnings and middles here.
I'm the youngest of 5. I grew up in Lombard, about 20 minutes north of here in Lamont, where we're at now.
And tell me about your siblings and who in the birth order.
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of 5, and then my oldest sister, Trish, she lives in Lombard, a couple blocks from where we grew up.
Trish is the oldest then?
She's the oldest. And then Mike, or the floor people, think his name is Jim, but JML, he
I met him before you. He was on the floor before you.
Yes, you did. Mm-hmm. He lives in Cape Coral now. He's the second oldest down in Florida. Third is Mary Treese. He lives down in the city. And then fourth was Clubber. And then somehow they had a fifth, and it was me.
So 2 girls and 3 boys.
2 girls and 3 boys.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the age gap between you and Clubber? mean,
18 months.
Oh, so you were pretty much you guys were kind of close together?
Yeah, Clubber and I were one class apart.
Okay, gotcha.
And then Clubber and Mary Therese were 2. Yeah, no, 3. And then Michael and Mary Therese were 2. And Trish and Michael, I think, were 3.
And then, Chris, what is your ethnic breakdown?
My dad was German-Irish, and my mom was Polish.
It makes for some pretty good meals, right?
Yeah, ate well on my mom's side. I will say that. My dad's mom, I can't remember ever making a meal. I don't know. It's maybe, I don't know. I can't say why. But I just don't remember ever going to the north. So they were North Siders. My mom's family was Southwest Siders, and I never remember going to my paternal grandparents' house for dinner.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, but I can tell you 100 meals we had on on the Southwest side. Yeah.
What did your dad do for a living?
My dad was a lawyer.
What kind of lawyer?
It's a good question. I never really delved into it. So I was 5 when he left. So he left 5 kids in 1972. I don't even know if I was 5 yet.
What? So how did that go down? What's the story behind that?
My dad was an alcoholic, heavy drinker. I don't have any good memories of him. Right. So picture a 5-year-old. I don't remember him being around a whole lot either. And now that's 53 years ago too. So, but he graduated from Loyola near the top of his class. He was an accomplished, student, attorney coming up. And then, my mom used to say that he fell in with the wrong type of clients. And there will be a recurring theme, which you have talked about before in some of your previous podcasts. If my dad had not been disbarred when he was, for what I don't know. I mean, again, I was even younger at that point. The judges he worked with were the Gray Lord. I remember Operation Gray Lord, and those guys all went to jail. I mean, so it would not have ended well for him one way or the other. Again, there's many things you look at, and you look back on would have been better if. But if he were still doing that with those judges, that wouldn't have been good for any of us. He was also, what's the right way to put it? He worked with some affiliated clients as well.
I understand what that means. Yes. I'm Italian. I know what that means.
Exactly. And where we lived in Lombard was a bit of a nest of affiliated families, and we'll talk about more of this later. Connected, yeah. He's probably undiagnosed, either bipolar or something. He's just something pushed him to things that would make him abusive. I can say that he never hit us kids, but what I saw him do to our mom was things that no kid should see.
And you were little.
I was little. So these are my memories.
Yeah. Right. So there's things that happened while you were alive that you don't remember still.
Oh, no doubt.
Too little. Right?
Too little. Yeah. So,
but stories from obviously your siblings.
So my fondest is not the right word. So my darkest memory, and it's really my strongest memory of him, is my parents went out to a party somewhere, and he got overserved. Now, we should preface everything by saying, people who don't know me, I'm 2 of Frank, right? So I'm 2 of you, physically. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So my dad was not a small human being. My mom wasn't a small woman either, but didn't matter, right? So somehow, I don't know what time it was, there's all the 7 of us, so 5 kids, and my mom and dad are in a bedroom at our house, downstairs, doors locked. And my dad I can see it right now, just hitting her. And it's also the first time I saw one of us try to stop him. and he picked his hand up. It was my oldest sister.
Your sister tried to stab him?
Yeah. Remember those cubes that had like foam in it and they had pictures on 1, 2, 4, 5 sides? Yeah. I mean, we all had them growing up or saw them growing up. My sister picked one up and was going to throw it at him like from 3 feet away. Whether she would have hit him or not, I don't know. But he looked and he stopped. And then he started yelling. I don't remember what he was yelling. And it kind of ended right there. But I think his next instinct was to go and hit her. I saw him one more time after that, maybe 2 more times after that. He came back to the house like a year later. So he left.
So after that, he left?
He left. It was better. It's not, I mean.
So is he paying for everything still? No?
No.
And then your mother was not working?
Not working.
Okay.
No. So she had a degree in economics from wherever she went to Rosary. Degree in economics, but started having kids and they got married in, say, I don't know, 56 or 57. Trish was born in 59, 60, 61. Mike was born in 63, 65, 6, 67. So she wasn't working. And her degree in economics was when she needed to go get a job. Was she Keynesian? Didn't matter anymore, right? Everybody was looking at that. So she ended up getting a job as a secretary, to support 5 kids. I will say that my paternal grandparents helped us out tremendously.
What were their names?
John and Mary.
On last names?
Lang. Yeah. They were great. Every Sunday they would come to our house and have dinner. So, but Grandma never made anything. She'd bring something from Peterson's bakery in Peterson's or something like that. Toohey and Caldwell in the city. Peterson and Caldwell in the city. But he was a retired fireman. He was an engineer that drove the truck. And then my grandma, she worked for the Department of Education or something in the city. But they came every Sunday, 4:00. They opened the door. I walked in there. You had their Rottweiler. We had a German Shepherd. The thing would just park the way. My grandpa would walk in first, mumble at it. Max would go out and sit in the corner and they'd come in and it was good to have that. So they helped us out, and my mom's mom and her aunt and her sister, who lived together their entire lives, really helped us out a lot too. I mean, we had a lot of.
So your aunt and your grandma.
Aunt and grandma. So my
on your mom's side.
On my mom's side.
Your mom's mom and your mom's sister.
Your mom.
Gotcha,
no, my mom's mom and her sister.
Oh, so your great aunt.
My great aunt.
Gotcha.
Yes. That was great. I know that my Uncle Jim, my mom's brother, she had one brother and my dad had one brother. I know he helped the times. And always very grateful when I would, as I grew and figured out what I was doing on the floor. We're going to that later. My cousins, my uncles, 2 sons would come down. We go to a baseball game, we go whatever, and I'd get the tickets. Whatever food or whatever we're going to have, and they're like, try to give me money. I go, no, I cannot take a penny from you guys. And they're like, no, you got to, and they're fine, and they're very one. The one who's my age, so I can pay. I know you can, but it's the principle of this that I have to do this. But I was, very thankful that if they weren't there, I don't know. I mean, there's many things that could have happened, right? I mean, you can go back to, let's say he hits her in the head the wrong way once and she dies. What happens to the 5 of us? Mm. So 5 to 12 or 13, what happens? Do we go into the system as kids? Can my grandma support 5 kids? Do we go to both set of grandparents? So growing up, that was always a concern. I was just like, well, what happens now? And he left. And the older I got, the less of a concern that became, because it was like, okay, well, there's older people here. And
so for clarity, after that kind of event with the cube, you only saw him 2 times after that, total for the rest of your life.
The rest of my life. So he came by once, probably a year after that. and he had a girlfriend, and wouldn't be his first girlfriend. We'll just leave it at that. That brought her over for dinner, and I vaguely remember what happened there. And then like 6 months after that, he came over and he wanted to take us all to Old Chicago.
I remember that.
So Trish wouldn't go. Michael would not go. Michael was like in 7th or 8th grade at the time. And he's like, you don't want to be seen with them. He's another going.
Because they had seen a little more trauma than you because they were older, right?
Right. So I remember Michael's in grade school and they had a father-son basketball game. So the kids played against the parents. And so the assumption is my dad can play. And I didn't know he had not 1 ounce of athletic ability in his body. So he comes out and he's basically wearing boxer shorts and a white t-shirt, dress shoes, and black socks. He walks out on the basketball court. And I'm like, something's not right here. And Michael's just like, head down. And I didn't put all that together until I was like, oh man, that's not good. That's not good.
This is unrelated, but you guys are all monster big. Yeah. So like at what age would Michael have reached the size of his dad? How big was your dad?
Probably 6'6", probably 280, I guess, and not a strong 280.
And you and Mike in your prime would be, well, give me your dimensions.
6'8", 260, okay. 265. So when Michael was a sophomore in high school, definitely would have been able to thwart him. Mm-hmm. And then as junior probably could have. Mm. So he was Michael's senior year in high school. He was 6'8", 240. I'm going to say 240. It was not heard of then, 1979. Who could, an athletic, that would not have been good for him. Like if he kept doing that, not for Michael, it wouldn't have been good for any of us, right?
And this is just a sidebar. Your brother Mike worked out at the same gym, and he was big but monster strong, like with the weights and stuff. We would talk about him because we were all taking martial arts, and like, what do you do with Mike Lang? I'm like, I'm running and I can't even outrun him. There's no way. The guy was just a force of nature.
No, I mean, you would have to. I mean, there are Mats. I love Mats. So you've talked about Mats enough, right? Yeah. People on this know who Mats is. The nicest man, the most humble man, who could literally kill almost anybody within 30 minutes of him. I forget 30 feet, 30 whatever. And Don Natick, I walk onto the floor and Mats would be sitting there with Don Natick, and Donnie would go, how would you stop him? And he goes, with gun. I'm like, no, Mats, you kick me once in the leg, I'm going to be fetal crying.
Yeah, that's so funny because he was humble like that. Brett and I were standing in the aisle, and Mats walked by, and Brett is 6'10" and 3/4. And I said, Sensei, how do you fight a guy like Brett? And he goes, baseball bat, 45, so he was real modest like that.
Yeah.
So.
No, but I don't know. I mean, so like, that's a good question. Like, I don't know what you would do. There were a couple times we were talking about it later in the pit where I got mad at somebody and I probably should have been fined, but so should have been the other person, where people were trying to get me off of that. I wasn't like sitting on top of him, but I had him up against the barrier, lapels in off the ground. And I remember Steve Gerrard telling me, he's just like, I tried as hard as I could to get you off of him. And I never felt more like a child in my life than right then. And I'm just like, I didn't even know you were behind me. I'm sorry if you fell down or whatever. No, I didn't fall down, but I didn't know what to do. It's like, get out of the way. That would probably serve you best.
I'll do one more pit thing, and then we'll come back to where we're at in the story. Jim Fasano and Pete Mulcrone, they had a lot of tension between them, probably going back to the neighborhood days.
I was the third point of that triangle, just so you know. But go ahead, yes.
And Pete, as you know, was a phenomenal athlete. Mm-hmm. And they were going at it. They were MFing each other, and then everything calmed down. And then Jimmy did one of these, and he was whispering to me. He goes, Frank, what do you do with that? I go, you can't do anything with that. So you see him coming and bull rushing, go the other way. So,
yeah. Meet him halfway. If you can't get out of it, meet him halfway. End it sooner.
Yeah, so. That's hilarious. All right, so you saw your dad a couple times. The one time you said about a year was with a woman, and then one more time.
Old Chicago. So it was Clover, Mary Therese, and I, second or third grade, maybe at this point. And we can't find them. So we're not far from, we're Bolingbrook, right? Not that far from here. And we don't know where we are. So trying to keep my pit mouth out of this.
You don't have to do that, by the way, just so you know.
So I'm like, we're like, where is he? And I was this 8-year-old. I would say, where the fuck is he? I'm looking at Clubber. I'm looking at my sister, and I'm like, I don't know. And then he was passed out on a bench.
Oh man.
So, and it was just like, and he kind of, stumbles awake and he's there. Can we go? So I know who said it, for probably Mary Therese. Can we go? So we left, and then that was the last time. So never heard from him. Never saw him.
This resonates with me a little bit because my dad took off when I was an infant.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see him till I was in my middle 20s, and it's only because my mom passed away when I was 18, and then my grandma, his mom, came to the wake, and she would call me up once a year, and then that led to us meeting one time when I was 25, and then I looked him up when I was 45, and we had maybe 5 to 10 meetings. I don't even remember. But what I'm curious about that I want to ask you is I never knew my dad at all, and my mother never said a bad thing about him. She never said anything other than your dad's a nice man. Someday you'll get to meet him. What was your mother's tone after your dad left?
She would never talk bad about him. She wouldn't necessarily defend him either. But, there were times she would remember we're at a Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving at her cousin's house on wherever it was. And the cousins they're all Polacks, and they all married somebody who was Irish. And one of them said, I remember this to the day I die. One of them said, hey, we all married somebody who was Irish. And my mom just said, well, all of yours worked. That was it. That was like the harshest thing I heard her say about their relationship. And it was, 70s Catholic, whether it's guilt or whatever you want to call it, never talked about, right? So my uncle and my mom's brother have 9 kids, and I say 20 years ago, we're talking about whatever, and I'm like, the cousin Marie, who's a couple of years, like a year older than Clubber, 2 years older than me, maybe. She goes, yeah, we were never allowed to talk about that. We had no idea what happened until, we could figure it out. Right. So I'm sure the older cousins, the age range there of 9 kids is vast. Right. So, the two oldest ones are my godparents.
Wow.
Yeah. So they were 15 or 16 when I was born. Right. So, so I'm certain they knew what was going on. But, it was just never talked about. And even in school, nobody ever asked where my dad was. It was awkward. There were father-son things that I just didn't go to. Neither did Clever. We're my sisters. I'm not saying it's not a pity party for me. It was just, well, you can't go to that. Everyone else is.
Tell me if this is true or false. This is world according to me.
Mm-hmm.
When a man has children, he is not a real man by definition to me if he can never see his children again. That is not you cannot be considered a real man if you do that, in my opinion.
If that's your choice to do that, I would agree with that. I'm not going to blanket that. There are probably some parent, we'll go both either side of this, that don't see their children because of what maybe somebody else says about them. That wasn't the case on this at all. I'm just saying, if you want to play devil's advocate, there probably is something that would be, along those lines of, well, I wanted to see him, but, there was a court order against me.
Right. Well, that's
different.
That's extreme.
Yeah. But I'm not, I will never,
I wanted to say this to you too. They talk about generational trauma and how much your environment creates your behavior, right? If you have an abusive father or mother, then you can be an abusive parent when you come along. But you are a circuit breaker. The circuit breaker tripped. And as far as I can tell, following you on Facebook, your kids are awesome, and you're a real super active parent. You and Beth.
Well, thank you. We'll talk about Clubber Fund later, but we talked to these kids will get scholarships. We'll talk about just real brief, and parents will be like a parent, right? They're all single parent home. Scholarships go to kids from single parent homes, and the parent would say, "This is great. No one does this." And I'm like, "Listen, there's so many reasons that we've got 180 kids who have gotten scholarships, and there's 180 different stories, and there's probably 360 different stories if it's depending on whatever it is. The easy ones are sadly when a parent passes. It was unfortunate. We can help how we can. It's the abandonment ones that are the tough ones. And it was just like I would tell those kids. I know the story a little bit, but all we're trying to do is break the wheel, break the spokes of the wheel, that you're not stuck on that wheel, and your kids are stuck on a wheel or whatever. And if we can help with that in any way, help you get through school or whatever it is, be happy to do it. But what you said, how did you say it again? You want to do?
You break the cycle. You're the circuit breaker.
The circuit breaker.
Yeah.
Same thing. You try to whatever. So go back to, I don't know what the word on the floor was when I first went down there, but I didn't drink. Right. So I would, every Christmas party, I was driving Brett and Grizz, and if I was driving them home at 2 a.m. from wherever, but they're like, okay, they knew I would be there for them. And people would be like, why don't you drink? And I was, so it's still going back to that 70s repressed, it just doesn't do anything for, I never, whatever. But I just started telling people the story. It's just like how my dad was an abusive alcoholic, and I've only knew him as an abusive alcoholic. I don't know if that's inside of me. And to take the risk of going out, having whatever.
You mean like the genetic predisposition to be an alcoholic, right?
Correct. And we're out somewhere and you have a couple of drinks and then things get sideways with somebody else. And then, it was in the group, that group, right, would be, if something went down, if it was me, Brett, Grizz, Michael, Gus, throw Tommy in there, Jeff, there would be problems because
the National Guard would have a problem.
That would be true.
Right?
That would be true. Not saying that, hey, we're super tough or anything. It was just we're fucking bigger than everybody else, right? I mean, it's going to be like, how do you, like you said, Mats, how do you stop this? Gun, bat, whatever, right? So I would just tell people that story. It was just like, there's things we can do to help ourselves be a circuit breaker or break the spokes of that wheel, break that piece of glass into 1,000 pieces, right? You can't put it back together again. And it's personal choice. And I've had conversations with people about addiction and whatnot. And I understand it's horrible if you're addicted to something and it becomes part of you. And the argument, it's not an argument, it's just discussion. And it was like, well, it's a disease. I'm like, it's a choice. And depending what your addiction is, it's easier to stop. I would say it's easier to stop than not. I mean, if you're addicted to heroin or something like that, where your body craves it, that's a problem. But the first time you did that, you had to know that this could have been the effect. You have to look at that and say, I'm going to shoot up heroin or snort heroin or smoke, whatever you do with it, or cocaine or whatever it is, and say that I'm going to be the guy it doesn't affect or the girl it doesn't affect, right? I can beat this whenever I want. I can stop whenever I want.
That's the delusion of addiction.
Correct. You asked me, did I know my dad? No, not at all. I knew an alcoholic version of who my dad was. But at some point he knew the first time he had a drink, and then the second drink and the third drink. And I don't know when that started. It could have been when he was 10. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. Right. But, those are the choices we make and choices we live with.
I have to sidebar you real quick here. You and I share something in common, and that, I don't know if you want to call it a fear or realization, I might have something genetically in me than my parents have. Well, my mother was an alcoholic, but then she died of a drug overdose. And I grew up only child with a bag of pot and a little vial of cocaine on my kitchen table. And I used to observe the behavior of the adults when they got high, and it scared me, right? So I didn't ever want to go there. So I've never done a drug in my life, which is, somebody was looking out for me, because it couldn't have been that. But as you know, and you said it already, it's choices, right? So you have choice, and you know at the beginning, if I'm going to do this drug for the first time, this is likely, going to be a net loss somewhere along the line. And then you convince yourself to do it. And then you get to a point where you're an addict. And this is how I was able to forgive my mother. It took me at least a decade, was that once you become an addict, you no longer have a choice. You can get to the point where you actually need an intervention. Then your ability to...
It drives you.
Yeah. So I was able to forgive her, because I was always saying, you made bad choices. You missed your grandkids, and you missed me succeeding in business, and you missed all this stuff for bad choices. But it was really the flashpoint where the choice became an addiction, and then the choice goes away. So
No, and I firmly, so the conversation was, I understand what you fought. I mean, some of my very good friends from the floor were went through the what do you call it, the program, right? The process of
many did,
right? And I knew where they were from it being a little kid and seeing it, and I knew what seeing other people on the floor that were completely self-destructing, and the trappings of the floor, and whether it's money or it's peer pressure or whatever, it's other things that I was just like, well, what's the peer pressure? I mean, that's the other thing. I was like, what's the peer pressure? You could just say, you can still be friends with somebody. You don't have to do that. Right. So if we want to get into this, well, we'll talk about it later. There are things that, that once you are, once it has its hooks into you, the addiction, or your body or your mind or whatever it is craves that feeling. It's before you get to that, it's still, you can always, there's got to be a way that for you to stop it. And if you can't stop it, it doesn't. There are people, I did it once, I'm never going to do it again. I never did it again. I felt horrible. I did, whatever. But that seems to be it's probably the majority of people. But it's, if it's 10% of the people who do something and they become hooked, that's who I'm talking to at this point. It's just like, the 10% of 5 billion people is a lot, if that's the number, right? And how many people are addicted and nobody knows, right? Whether it's alcohol or...
It's 8 billion too, right?
Yeah, 8 billion, rounding down.
So Tom, let's finish the story of your dad and then come back to you. And your dad is no longer with us, correct? And when did he pass away?
Let's say 90 or 91. I had not met Beth yet. And
around what age would you say he was?
He was 59.
Was there a cause of death that we know of?
A heart attack. That's what we all died from. All our hearts stopped. How his stopped, we don't know. He was in Southern California. We knew he was down there because my grandma, his mom, would send him money. And my grandpa did not know this. So there was a bit of there were things that my grandpa said to Mike before my grandpa passed, that, he was like, if I ever saw him again, I'd kill him.
This is a father to your father, his father to your father.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. It was like, if I saw him again,
Did it have any effect on you that he died?
Well, I'll tell you the story. Sitting in the upstairs on the 11th floor, Goldberg, LIT.
327.
327. So Levinson's office had that giant table, and we're all sitting around it. And I had a sandwich and a bowl of soup from the place, not Rivers, but it was down.
Yeah, I forgot the name of it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm sitting there. Gus is next to me. Grizz is to the left of me. Everyone's in the office. And Michael walks in, and he looks around. He looks at me. He goes, "Hey, guess who died?" And I'm like, "There's a lot of people. I go, "All right, related?" And he goes, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay, well, not Busha, my mom's mom, not Mary, right? You'd be ripped up about that. Male, female, I go Frank Mastro. So an uncle on my paternal aunt. Nope. I go male or female, and he goes male. It's not
And he's not overly sad about
it. No, everyone's on pins and needles. They're like, "Who the fuck died?" I'm just like, "Okay, it's not Uncle Jim, who we talked about before." He goes, nope. I go, "Pops." He goes, "Yep, my sandwich and my soup. Take a bite." And they're looking at me like I'm the devil. I was like, "Your dad just died?" I'm like, "Oh my God, you don't know the story." So nobody in the group really understood how we grew up. So for like 15 minutes, all right, here's what happened. Haven't seen him since 1972 or 3, 19 years later. He made no effort to reach out to us. It gets worse. So and they all understood. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So I guess that makes sense. But they're also like, who would do that, right? But Brett's family, his mom and dad, great. Grizz's mom and dad, great. Jeff's dad's probably sterner than anybody that we would know.
Loved Mr. Allen, and I loved Lloyd, Brett's dad.
Yeah. Just keep, Gus's mom and dad, escaping Lithuania, right? I mean, there's stories everywhere, right? They were just like he really did that? I'm like, yeah. You never heard me talk about it before, did you? I've been to your houses. I've met your dads, and I've never said, hey, you guys have all met our mom. You've never said, hey, no one ever asked, where is he? Right. So, wrapping up his arc, which is, it's important, right? But, so there's 5 of us, right? 5 kids. And Michael gets a call from a woman he's living with in Southern California. And she's talking to him, oh, your dad was so proud of you, what you did, and so on and so forth.
His girlfriend?
Yeah. Yeah. So he was following.
Oh my God, you're like, come on, man. Right.
We weren't married, but we have a joint checking account. There's a couple $100 in there. Means, I really could use that. And, since you're his only child, you need to sign off on, that this will be released. And Michael just goes, you know what? I don't care what you do with it. I'll preface this with, he was such a good guy. He had cleaned himself up. He was something in the Salvation, a colonel in the Salvation Army or something like that. And Michael just goes, well, all right, keep the money. Just so you know, he has 5 kids. What a great guy. Hung up the phone. And that was it. That was the last bit of connection to him ended then. I was fine with it. I mean, at this point, what was I going to do? I mean, I never had any desire to go and find him, right? There was nothing. I mean, he had noted, I mean, it was just like, all right, there's nothing here, right? But people, you talk about what ifs. What if he had stayed? What if he was an alcoholic? Right? If he stayed and was an alcoholic, things would have been completely different, right? I mean, yeah, that's life changing from that standpoint. That you have a stable home, you have this, you have that. But if he stayed and was an alcoholic, somebody was going to die. Probably, and it probably would have been.
Or it could have been worse. It could have been just you get PTSD and you're screwed up forever.
Yeah, that's true too. I didn't think about it that way, but he never would have stopped beating our mom. Just never would have stopped. And somebody would have come behind him with a fucking knife and put it through his spine at some point. And it would either have been the Trish or Clubber. I don't know which one. But that's probably how it would have gone down. Because Michael was gone at a certain age. Michael was playing ball and everything else. I mean, he just wasn't around as much. Not that he wouldn't have been defensive.
How did your mom take his death?
Mary Treese was with her when she found out.
Who was that?
My middle sister. So the middle child, the third. And she said that, he had problems, and she cried a little bit. at some point, she saw a side of him that none of us saw. And I am not judging anybody on how they feel about him going. I mean, like I said, it was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Sorry. Not sorry, right? It's just like, it's not, and Matt had absolutely no effect on my life whatsoever, right? But also, they can argue that it does, right? Where I'm just like, it's just, for the longest time, I just assumed people would just leave my life for whatever reason, right? Because, it just happened, so one of the youngest in our family, me, and both on the cousins on my mom's side, so I can't tell you how many times I was a pallbearer at 8, 9, 10 years old, right? Old great grandma, great aunts, whatever. It's just people left. I just always looked at things that way. And whatever the reason was. And when him leaving was just like, he's left.
Did any of your siblings have a ripple at all?
Yeah, I would say so.
Maybe Trish?
She was dating a guy for years, from probably 16, 17, 18, 19, same guy, and got pregnant. I probably remember James, our nephew, he's a clerk in the pits, skinny, whatever.
I do, yeah.
I consider him my little brother. He's not my nephew. We're about 12 years apart, right? So we're still pretty close. Would that have happened? Maybe not. But but I wouldn't have one of the people I was closest to my life with for the longest time. I wouldn't have James, right? And it's just like, oh, okay, I'll take that trade. I'll take that trade every time. I lose a guy who was probably going to kill somebody or get killed, I'd be watching that. Or I have a relationship for 45 and a half years with my nephew. Michael, I would, they saw more, right?
Right.
The three in Mary Trees probably saw more or could recognize more. She would, she would probably talk to you for 2 hours about this and say how it had affected her. She's made some, she'll self-aware, so I did things I should not have done. And, she probably trace it back to that. She's fine. She's in a good place and whatnot, but we've had conversations where, she'll tell you, so I drank too much, I probably, there are times I probably drank way too much and so on and so forth. But she recognizes that she doesn't, anymore. And, she's in a good place with that. There's other, I can't say from my standpoint, like I said, I didn't do things. Not that there was any reason to do it anyways. Whether drinking, smoking, or whatever, growing up, all my friends, grade school, drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, whatever they grew into doing after that, I'm not going to tell on anybody. It was just like, no, one, it had no allure to me. And two, just like I said, it was just like.
So you're never allowed to with that stuff, drugs and alcohol. Yeah. And I've had a lot of people on the podcast talking about, smoking pot and doing drugs in grade school. Mm-hmm. So many of them. Mm-hmm. And I always ask them, forgive me, I'm oblivious to this because I wasn't doing drugs in grammar school. Where are you getting this stuff? They're like everywhere. Yeah. I never saw it because I wasn't paying attention to it. Right?
Yeah. The only positive out of that aspect of our lives growing up is that he left. And there'll be people who are listening and say, how is that positive? And it's just like, it is. I can't tell you any other way other than, whatever would have finally driven him out would have been, he'd be leaving in handcuffs or he'd be dead. Or we would have seen it. And one of us would have been responsible for it. And that's I'll stand on that till the day I die, and I don't, nobody knows what happens to us when we leave here. Right. But I promise you, I will not see him. So it's just one way or the other. I think I've been a good enough person that if there is a definitive heaven and hell. I mean, I talk about this, and it's another plane type thing. We won't be in the same plane, physical plane, spiritual plane, not an airplane. But he was just a bad person. He's a bad seed, and I'd like to think that or maybe alcohol made him a bad seed. I don't know, but that we've all avoided that.
One little difference, I did look my father up in my 40s. I found him and I started visiting him because I wanted to know about my family lineage, which all I know is I'm named after his only brother who died in the Korean War at 19 years old. So I wanted to know this stuff. So I found him again, started visiting him in this little apartment, and I never gave him money because he was a gambler, but I'd bring him food and beer and wine. And, I brought my journal and I was taking notes like a student. And we kept having this debate about why he wasn't in my life. And he blamed me and my family. Your family told me not to come around and blah, blah, blah. And you should have been searching for me basically your whole life. And I'm like, no. And he kept using this term, you dropped the ball. Yeah. I go, Dad, I'm here. Okay. Yeah. And I'm here because of me. Yeah. Okay. So finally in our very last meeting, and I stopped going to visit him and talk to him because I didn't respect him at all. I said, you know what? The only thing we have in common is we're both fathers. And when that first child was born and the doctor handed me that little baby, something came over me. And there would be no force on God's good earth that could keep me from that child other than death. And that's what being a father's about. And you dropped the ball. Yeah. And he just did one of these and he's like, you're right, I dropped the ball. Yeah. So now all of these Lardinos start popping in my life through Facebook because he's talking to his family. Yeah. I met my son, met my cousins, and my father's cousin, which would be my second cousin, very nice lady, Beverly. She lives in Arkansas. She sent me the family tree. Fill in your part of the family tree. She sent me photos with little descriptions. Very nice lady, very spiritual, God and Jesus. And now came a period of time I hadn't talked to my dad for a year or two, and she called me and said, I just wanted you to know your dad is on hospice. He doesn't have much time left, and I just thought you should know. Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So I was at the gym on the treadmill, and I was going, let me give the guy a call. So I called him up. How you doing? He's like, I'm checking out, and I know it. I'm like 85 pounds, and they can't give me anything for the pay networks anymore. And you tell Anthony's his son from his last wife, tell him I want you to have the little shrine to my brother Frank, because you're named after him. You have 3 boys. You're going to carry his name on. And I never did reach out to Anthony, but I said, you know what, Dad, I'm proud of you. And he's like, for what? I never did anything for you. I said, well, you lived on the streets, and that's a hard life, and you survived. And I go, that's something to be said. You had a strong will to survive. And I said, secondly, you took care of your mom till the day she died. And that's the most noble thing you can do for your parents. And then I said, lastly, you finally got it right with Anthony. You raised the son all the way to adulthood, and he's Air Force drill instructor. And I said, you've done good finally. And he said, thank you for that. And that's the last time I talked to him. And when I told my wife that, she yelled at me. Why did you say that to him? He never did anything for you. I said, well, first of all, I didn't lie. I did find the things in him that I thought, from my perspective, were noble. And what is wrong with giving him a little bit of peace in his last few days? And he died the next day or the next day. I don't even remember. And there was not a blip in me either. I was like, I don't feel like a part of me died or whatever. It's back to the circuit breaker thing, right? We learn from them what not to do, right? So that's as equal as the lesson is.
No question.
Yeah.
My dad's family, he had one brother. His mom and dad, fantastic. And then my great aunt, so my grandma's sister lived in Willowbrook. Her dad.
They lived together, you said?
No, that was my mom's side.
Oh, gotcha.
And then they had a daughter, but they at Clubber's funeral, Ann and Pat show up. So Ann is my great aunt, Pat's her daughter. So they're easily
So it's your great aunt and aunt.
80 and 60. I'll just throw a number out. That's probably right. And it wasn't expected because there wasn't a lot of communication between the two. And there was a big divide between my mom and those two. But we would still go there. So my mom tried to keep an association with family, But they blamed my mom for my dad's
Your dad's cratered life. They blamed your mom.
Yes.
That's brutal.
She did take it. And I was just like, okay. But I was still young, right? So I was just like, well, it's not how I remember things. But my grandpa, his dad, tried to keep a relationship between us and my dad's brother. So my uncle Gene on my dad's side. And he lived in LaGrange Park, one of the two. And my grandpa would come over and sometimes he'd pick me up and I'd go over there and just hour or two, he'd go and see them and then come back to the house and have dinner at our house. And there was always the divide, if I call it a divide between my great aunt and my mom, between my uncle and my mom, it was the abyss, right? And I couldn't, it's whatever. Again, I'm 10 maybe, right? 11. And didn't really ask any questions about it at the time. But so in 81, beginning of 81, my dad's mom passes away. And then 11 months later, my grandpa passes away. And they didn't have a lot, but they had I would say it was 100,000 back then. So in 81, $100,000 of asset was a good number. So he left half to my mom and half to my uncle. And apparently my uncle wasn't happy about that. So there was other things that were left that, he had 3 pocket watches. One was supposed to go to me, Clubber, and Michael. We never got them, whatever. He went to the house and took he was taking stuff out of it, whatever, right? It is his dad. I can't. So I don't know what the time frame is. Say 82, 81, 82, sometime around 82. My uncle serves my mom with papers. He's suing my mom for it was $85,000. So my dad had borrowed $5,000 from my uncle in 1960, 61, 62. I don't know what year it was. It's irrelevant. But after my dad left, my mom never divorced him. So the law then was, since you didn't divorce him, this is your debt. We don't know where he is. My uncle knew where he was. This is part of the shit that fucking...
So your uncle sued your mom while your dad was alive?
Yeah, he was living in Southern California. Well, my dad died in 91. This is 82, 83.
Understood.
Right. So people are trying to, get my mom lawyers. They'll do this for you. But we're not the law. So she lost. So she had pretty much paid the house off with the money from my grandpa's estate and whatnot. So her house in Lombard was worth at the time, $50,000 maybe in 1983, 3 or 4 bedroom split level ranch 45 years ago, not worth a whole lot of money. So you got to take 2 mortgages out to give him $85,000. So we'll come back to this. But it's just like, how do you do that? What compels you that you're so miffed that your father's wishes were that his daughter-in-law, whose son beat the shit out of, and her kids, they'd have something to remember him by. It's just, my dad, not a good person. My uncle, I think, is a worse person than my dad was. And I talked to him one time, my uncle, after that. I had no reason to talk to him when he was suing my mom, but talked to him one time after that, and that has to do around Clever, but we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But it was just, how, what makes you do this? Michael thinks that he sent our dad some of that money. I think he's probably right.
That's what I was saying. It was swirling in my head too.
Yeah.
So they
just
probably conspired a little bit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll fuck her one more time.
So this is interesting to me that their parents seem to me in this story to be good people.
Yeah, definitely.
How did they turn out to be such assholes?
I don't know. My first role model growing up would have been my grandpa, my dad's dad. I mean, wonderful, wonderful human being. Did whatever he could for us. He had a couple of master strokes. Fought those, came back, would still come to drive to the house. You wouldn't know he had, leg dragged a little bit as he's older, but just great man. But grandma was a little out there, so maybe that there were some,
I get you,
some issues from there that were, did she feed some of this? Maybe I can't answer that. I wasn't in those conversations. But if you speculate, yeah, maybe. But I couldn't tell you. I mean, there are people, we know people who are horrible people that have great parents. It just happens. Something happens, and where they're not wired right, or they learn how to live and do things that think there's no tally at the end of the day for that they have to own up to.
So interesting stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So we cover a lot of ground, and a lot of our friends are watching this going, all right, man, when are we going to start talking about the floor? But we got a little bit more ground to cover before the floor. And that would be, I wanted to ask you about your athletic career, and, because that's been a little blurry with me since I've known you. I know Mike, a little bit about Mike. I know about Brett. I know about Jeff, Tommy Heights. I didn't necessarily know your sporting career.
If I were in the last two generations of young American boys, I would have been held back a year. I was 20 days away from the cutoff. October 11th, September, December, November 1st was the cutoff. I was.
So you were younger in the classes.
I was, by far.
Gotcha.
As a grade schooler, I was pretty good at whatever I wanted to do. I was bigger. It wasn't giant. I mean, it wasn't, you would think I was, 6 foot as a sixth grader.
Were you a good student?
Was a good student. Yes and no. I do know that when I went to kindergarten, I was the only kid in my kindergarten class who could both read and write. So I was turning 5 going into my kindergarten year. I was 4 and 10 months. Does that sound right? 5 and 10, whatever it is. But everybody else, teachers were like, oh, that's pretty good. And then old man left, and instead of having a mom home every day, I'm not blaming anybody on this other than my mom. And I definitely could have worked harder. But there was no supervision at home when I get up from school. It's like, I'm going to watch Hogan's Heroes again, or I'm going to watch I Dream of Jeannie's on. I haven't seen this one. So, that's on me. School became something that I just did, so in the grade school I went to, I was, it was a smaller class. There was 22 or 24 kids. I had 12 boys, 12 girls, something like that, 12, 11, whatever it was. I can name every one of them for you, the boys for sure in a heartbeat. But, so we did everything together, all the way through. I do remember, well, this was a fact. So I was ambidextrous growing up before I went to school. I would do things equally well, both hands. And then I got to Catholic grade school. You can't get that pen out of your left hand. Do this right-handed. Oh, the pen like I had, like I had rigor mortis, right? I was in my hand all crooked and whatever, and couldn't color in the lines. So I was like, but I can do it with this one. Can we? But so and so. So in like second grade, I would be sent. My mom would have to leave work, and they would drive me up to the north side. So from Lombard to Foster and something to some convent where they would put a thing on a pencil. Frank, I'm not kidding you. For an hour and a half in the afternoon, I would write the alphabet with this triangle on a pencil. And then he'd give me crayons to color in the lines. I'm like, ma'am, nun, sister, I can do this with the other hand. No, you can't be left-handed. So I had to fight that. So I do believe that there are things that that did not help me when I was trying to figure out how to do math.
What do you write with now?
I right-handed, but it's, it took a long time to force my hand to write the right way. And I can still, I haven't done it in a while, but, I used to write the alphabet, a couple times a week with my left hand. See, I can still do it. But like athletically, I can do things left-handed just naturally. Like, it's like, how do you do that? Like when coaching some of my kids' feeder basketball team, I just start taking jump shots left-handed. And they're like, that's better than your right hand. I'm like, yeah, it's a long story. I don't want to get into it with you right now. But anyway, so I fought, and I didn't fight it, but it was just, I had to kind of rewire not subconsciously, I didn't know, rewire my brain about how to do things with the opposite hand while I'm trying to learn how to learn, right? Whatever you're going to school for. So it wasn't great. And the school I went to, grade school, was horrible. Just Catholic parish, Lombard's parish church. Frank, I could tell you that all the teachers are dead. So I would tell it to their face too. If it was 70 degrees out at lunchtime, school would be over. We'd be playing baseball, not in the parking lot, at the field, the Park District field behind the school. And they didn't even know where we were. We could have been on our way to Yorktown. And just if we came back whenever the bus was coming, they'd be still out there drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes in the shade.
So we just take a self-appointed half day to go play baseball.
If it was nice out, every day.
Wow.
That's when the nuns left. So the nuns stopped teaching like when I was in 5th grade. They ran out of nuns. And,
otherwise, the nuns would be doing some ground and pound on your
my
ass.
God, yes. Yeah. We had my sister Relay in 4th or 5th grade. We never went outside. It was like German calisthenics, German army calisthenics. I would say Nazis. Where, okay, stand up. And she had a record. Circle your arms, forward, backwards, toe touches for like 20 minutes. Okay, sit down. Open your math books.
That was your recess, right?
And we look outside and everyone else is outside. That's just like, what the hell? We all graduated 8th grade. I'm not quite sure how, all of us collectively. And went to Bennett. And so Michael went to Bennett. Trish went to Montini, which would have been the parish high school. Michael was noticed at a young age that he was different athletically. So he went to Bennett. And then Mary Therese went to Bennett. Clubber went to Bennett. And I went to Bennett.
How was your mother affording this stuff? Bennett's expensive, isn't it?
Yeah. So Christ the King was our grade school. Parish, we didn't pay. It was just basically, okay, keep them in school. We understand, blah, blah, blah. So Bennett, at the time was whatever it was. So my grandma, my dad's mom and dad were paying for high school until they passed. So Michael was out, Mary Therese was out, and then my freshman year was me and Clubber were freshmen and sophomores. Clubber was asked to leave Bennett after his sophomore year, but I was still there. Was a fish out of water, right? So, like I told you, I was insulated. I had these 12 kids that we just did everything together. And I was the only one who went to this high school. And Bennett or Montini and Bennett were rival schools. Like I remember as a grade schooler going to see Bennett play Montini at Montini's little gym, and they had this big cafeteria, and it was Montini always thought they could beat Bennett. And the big rub was Montini would have been good if Michael went to Montini, not to Bennett. And again, this was an affiliated high school.
I understand what affiliated means.
Right.
Connected.
Connected again. So, and I knew everybody. Clubber and I are in the walking around the cafeteria, the game's going on. There's hundreds of people because they can't get into the gym and they've got a closed circuit thing. And Bennett is beating the bejesus out of Montini. It's whatever the score is. It's 30 points probably at halftime. And something happens. A spark is lit in the cafeteria, and the fucking chairs, parents throwing, just a melee. And the game's still going on. Nobody inside the gym has any idea what's going on in the cafeteria. And Clubber and I were like just watching this from where the food line is with our buddies from grade school and affiliated children. And we're laughing. It's like, hey, I know that guy. Hey, that's Mr. So-and-so. I'm like, yeah, Jesus. It was quite the sight. And had it been the other way, if Michael had gone to Montini would have been better. Probably could have beat Bennett, but Bennett was just that. Michael's class was ridiculous. Probably, they were the perfect combination of everything a basketball team needed to be. They were just great. And watching that growing up, get off of that. But going back to where I was, it was better for me that I went to Bennett, and it was hard. I mean, it was so hard when I went there because I was struggling with basic stuff. English class, we got to diagram these sentences. I'm like, I think we did this with one of the nuns 4 years ago, but I don't remember doing it since. So, and then, math was okay. History I was fine with. Anything that had memorization involved around it, I was going to be fine. So that stuff was fine. But math and my mom made us, Clubber and I, take a Latin.
That's a Catholic thing to do.
Great. Helps me with crossword puzzles to this day. I will say that.
A lot of our languages got Latin.
Yes. Yeah. So, but it was that part, my first 2 years, and then I finally caught up. And I was like, okay, all right, this stuff. And I could start to pick my classes junior and senior year, right? So Bennett was college prep school. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be an engineer. I'm not going to be a chemist or scientist of any sort. The little bit of Latin I know is not going to get me into medical school. So we're not going to do this. So I just started following things. So I like, political science classes and history classes and, more literature than, reading a class of eclectic books, things that you could pick a book and then it was curated, but I was okay, this was a good class. So then junior, senior year was easy, right? And then when I went to college, so all right, so going back to sports. So going back to grade school, it didn't matter. Little league stuff, I could throw, I could hit, I could do whatever. I was a big enough kid, didn't play football yet. Always wanted to. Some of my buddies were playing. I was like, this looks like fun, right? And then when, so in grade school, when this whole Bennett Montini thing, I say this, people will tell me I'm crazy. So in my grade school, I will talk to these guys, I'll look them in the eye, and I will tell them that, hey, none of you were better than me. Some of you were as good and more athletic maybe at the time, but you were shaving. I was not. I was still 5 years away from shaving more. But I was still a better basketball player than you. I contend to this day that there was a cabal between Montini and Christ the King coaches that we can't send them another one. Bennett can't get another Mike Lang going there. That's me looking backwards. I could be crazy, but it didn't matter because I did not grow yet, right? The operative word there is yet. So we go to these, I go to my grade school games and I'd be in, everything, layups, whatever. Coaches figure out how they got to stop, Mike Lang's brother. Clubber couldn't play at all. Let's go back to that. Clubber completely unathletic. But so, and it was just like, it's like, don't worry about it. I'm not going to play. So sure enough, so Bennett's feeder schools, Catholic schools, I'd be there and, I play a minute, 2 minutes, do fine, and they come out, so on and so forth. So go to Bennett, don't have a lot of confidence, but, play football. I'm like, oh, I'm big enough, but different, like I said, I was at a physical strength disadvantage that, okay, you're a big kid. And they looked at me like I was going to be Clubber, not Michael. But at this point, I looked more like Clubber than I did Michael as a freshman. So we're going to play nose tackle. I'm like, oh, I want to play defensive end and tight end. No, you're going to play nose tackle and maybe center. And I'm like, listen. So I convinced them one practice. Can I play defensive end? Can I please play defensive end? Because I was athletic. I mean, I look like a taller Pugsley Adams, right? So I go to play, I get a couple snaps at defensive end, and I get to the quarterback both times in practice, and next practice I'm at nose tackle again. I tell my mom I can't do this. They keep hitting my knees. It's no fun. Whatever. I have a few regrets in life. This is one of them. So I stopped playing. Yeah, that stuck with me for 3 years. That I quit. And I did. No question. I did. But I was like, I'll play basketball. I'm gonna be a basketball player. Basketball player, and then the sport I love the most was baseball, and I'll play baseball. I'll show them all on the baseball field that nobody can do. It's just like great. So basketball's hard. I'm on the B team, but I'm physically a little kid, right? I'm tall. I'm 5'10", tallish. For you, I'm really tall at 5'10".
Why you got to be short shaming me?
You are. Well, you're short. You're short.
You are.
I'm not shaming you, but there's just skill wise, I can hang, but I couldn't run with. I was fucking getting lapped, get a rebound, go down to play offense, or coming back to play defense already, right? So I was like, shit. So sophomore year, make it kinda. I was like, well, you're gonna be the 16th guy. And I'm just like, oh, this is great. I could be at Montini playing or Lombard South playing or whatever. And then junior year, I get cut. So I'm like, oh, okay, so why am I even here? Right. So school wise, it's just like, it's stupid. Still school was fine. I mean, became friends with people there. Senior year worked out hard, went to try out, and like 2 weeks before the trial, first of all, we had to run a mile in 5. If you were shorter than the coach, you had to run the mile in 5:45. I was like this bottle cap shorter than the coach in October, whatever. I'm 16 at this point, my senior year, and a couple of weeks before that, I was doing the dishes at the house, and somebody dropped a knife on the floor, just fell off the table and didn't pick it up, and I'm not wearing shoes, and I walk, and it goes in between.
Oof.
There, and was not good going into basketball tryouts with this. But so I go to him, and I was fine. I was like, I got to make it, So I'm 6'1" better shape. I was working out with Michael, and one of his buddies from Penn State was living with us, football player. And part of me was like, well, should I play football? I would have. There are things I could have done, right? But still, I'm not super strong, right? I still have little kid. I'll say it, I'm starting to go through puberty at 16, right? So would have been hard. Football would have been difficult, but you have to still get around me, right? So there are some positives of that. for a coach. And then, so I don't. But it was part of that was like, no, they're going to just these guys have been dicks to me for 3 years. Why would I subject myself to this now? I've got 6 months. I'll never see these people again. That's really what I was looking forward to. But then I was like, I'll make the basketball team. So I don't make the basketball team. Coach keeps 3 sophomores. One, it's his son, who I still talk to now. It's good. Nothing against the coach. I get it. I mean, I fucked up the year before. I came in thinking that I was going to be Mike Lang's brother. I'd be fine, right? But I'm also Clubber's brother. So they don't know which one I am. So that's my fault. And I don't blame him. So, but I was like, you kept 3 sophomores. You kept 2, give me your son, which would have helped them. So I kept playing when I got junior year. So I kept playing. I'd go to the Park District and I'd be the white kid with 20 black. You hear the stories, right? White kid with 20 black kids, white kid, 20 black kids. And not kids, they're 22, 24, 25, 30. And they accepted what I could do. And, just they appreciated that I was playing. And some of them knew who Michael was, some didn't. It was just fine. It was never because of that. But then I started to grow. So October, like I said, I'm just under 6'2". And then Christmas, I'm 6'7". Right. So walking around school, small school, people don't really recognize this or whatever. So it's just like, whatever. But I'm still going to, I was intramurals, it was a joke. I mean, I would go score, we'd score 60 points. I'd have 55 against kids who weren't very good either. So I do preface that with that. But just kept playing. Michael was playing in Japan then. So he comes home, I pick him up at the airport. So when I started the school year, I'm 6'1". When he left for Japan, I'm 6'1", probably 215. Maybe somewhere around there. He comes home, I'm 6'7", 235. So I grew 5 inches, put on, so now I am almost through puberty. Some will say I'm still not, but so he's just like, well, so it's when in 1985, you go into the airport, pick somebody up. I'm in the terminal. He walks by me. I'm like, hey, and he's like, fuck. So we go back and
he's how tall? Like 6'8"?
He's 6'8". So he's
you're right there.
He's about an inch taller than me at this point. I had 25 pounds of the right weight heavier.
Oh, yeah.
And we go back and he's like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I can go to COD, I think. Right. And I don't know what else to do. I mean, I can't pay for school. Right. So he's like, okay, well, you're going to play summer league with us. When you say with us, it's all the guys that play overseas or play Division I basketball. And I'm like, they're not. And I go, no, you're playing. Don't worry about it. So I hadn't played an organized basketball game with people who knew what they were doing in 3 years, right? So we go out there and it's the NCAA approved summer league. There were only a couple. One I could not play in. That was Chicago State. That was the best of the best played there. Pros played there. And this one, and there was one in Aurora. So I'm playing in this one I'm 16 still, right? No, 17. And I'm just like playing with guys who get paid to a degree to play. So I'm like, all right, this isn't going to be that bad. Because no matter how bad I am at a certain aspect of this, I've got 8 guys I'm playing with that can cover for me. So they made me look really good. I was not bad, but I still had no concept of what I was doing in the flow of an offense, especially with these guys. So played a game, I did well. And the coach, I went from Bennett. There was a coach from Benedictine, IBC was there. And he comes up to Mike. Michael knew him well. And he's like, who is that? And he goes, it's my little brother. And he's like, what's he doing? He's probably going to COD and just getting him here to play here and then see what happens. And he goes, we'll take him. And I'm like, so I'm in on the conversation. I'm like, okay, whatever. I can't believe, why they wouldn't take me across the street in high school. Why would they take me here? So Go over, talk to them. They're like, well, you're going to work with you and whatever. So and so. All right, whatever. So I go, and first couple months it was, I'm in a structure, which I haven't been since Sister Aurelia Ann in 5th grade, right? So, okay, this is going to be interesting. So I dress for all the games, and they have a JV team, so I play in those games, and I'm just like, they put me at center, which I have no idea how to play. Because a year ago, 6 months ago, I was playing like 2 guard or 3 guard or small forward, but I'm the size of one now. I'm just like, hey, I don't know what to do here. I haven't played with my back to the basket since grade school, so I will teach you. So things are going not great, but I got to learn, right? And I'm like, well, they know what they're doing. I'm not saying they don't, right? So I'm just following them. And then Christmas break, I remember this play vividly. So there's a drill 3-on-2, 2-on-1. So it's basically 10 minutes after you start warming up, layups, shooting around, do a drill. 3 people, there's 2 people under the opposite basket. 3 people come down against them. So I'm one of the 2. And whoever the other person with me is, I don't know. But if you shoot it on the 3-on-2 and you make it or miss it, you're getting back on defense. It's just basically a drill to get back. So the guy I'm back with gets the rebound, and I take off, which is what I knew how to do, right? I was like, oh, this is great. This drill, I can kind of be me. And he throws me a pass, and the kid coming up to me was a year ahead of me in high school, Tommy Hayes, great guy. He was always a great guy. Nothing but great things to say about Tommy Hayes. He comes up to me, and he's like 2 feet away when I catch the ball. And I just instinctively, I take a step, I dribble, I spin, I leave him at half court, go up, and converted my first in-play dunk of my life. And the 25 people in the gym going nuts. And I was just like, fuck, I can do this. This isn't hard. And this will resonate when we get to the floor too. And just built on that from there. So there was a trip to the school. They rode up to Green Bay to play in a tournament. And coach was like, hey, what are you doing? You should go on this trip with us. I'm like, yeah, sure. I got, what am I going to do? I go home and, I'm going to sit and watch Hogan's Heroes and Gilligan's Island while you guys are up there, and, I'll be happy to go. So go up, put me in one game. But they realized that, he can do other things. We got to figure this out. And just kept playing that way, right? So season ended, started, immediately everybody on the team just started playing pickup, in the gym. And I was like, I am not playing in the post. I am not playing in the post. So I was playing wing. I get the ball and just fucking, I'm comfortable in my body at this point. Now I'm 6'8", 235, right? With some strength and whatever, could jump, which was frightening to me. It was fantastic. It was one of my best years of basketball. I was like, great. So next year I'm going to come back. I'm going to tell coach, I want to play wing. I'll be the biggest kid. It was Division III basketball. I'll be the biggest kid in D3 basketball playing wing. It's like, there's nobody. It would be like Michael size person in 1979 in the post, but now you had someone his size playing the wing who can put the ball on the floor and whatever else and get there. Now you're in the post. Fuck. But Michael was just like, he came back. So when he came back in whatever, April or May, he came to open gym, and I was, doing things in open gym, and he's like, you can't play here. Like, what do you mean? He goes, you should not be here. You should be somewhere else. So I finally physically developed, right? And what the Bennett coaches thought I would be just took another year, but I was a year younger than everybody, right? So going back to the birth age.
Right,
and everything.
gotcha.
So there was a kid who came, who was one of the kids who made it as a sophomore. He comes the following year, and we're playing open gym, and I get a ball in the wing, and I'm still going to go play post when the season starts, or whatever it is. So I get a ball in the wing, go up, like it's 1-on-3, go up and dunk, and the kid's like, "Where was this?" I go, "It was in a 5'10" kid's body."
Right.
I mean, it just wasn't. It was in there. It just was so. It was so far away. I was still not even the caterpillar. I was the
machine wasn't built yet.
No.
So.
Yeah, it's the old someone talking about our kids later. And this one guy talked about his kid. He goes, he wants to do things he can't do. I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you can't shoot a cannonball from a canoe. It just can't happen. The canoe's going to sink or it's going to flip over. You have to measure how you're going to do things." He was a decathlete. He's not a great person, but he was a decathlete and Olympic decathlete. So, that's kind of where I was. It was just like, I looked like I had a body that I could do things, but there's just like all my strength was from wrestling clubber. I mean, it wasn't from if you put me under a bench, I could probably hardly bench the bar at 15, let alone put weight on it. Right? It was just not physically coordinated and whatever else. So going back to my story athletically, it was just like, so I had an opportunity to go to Creighton and try to walk on there, and how I was playing then, I would have. A kid who was a year behind me at Bennett, he was playing there, and that would have been some comfort. I would have known somebody there, but I also kind of like not having anybody knowing who I was as opposed to who I am now, physically, athletically, or whatever. Because not that it was a bad thing, but I still, the confidence and whatever, still not great in me at that point. So I stayed. I didn't go. I didn't go to the open gym. It was a open tryout, and there was like, "No, he'll make it. We've heard enough." And I would have walked on. I was like, "How am I going to pay for that?" There's a lot of, like I said, confidence, self-doubt creeping in. So I didn't. So I stayed there. I was like, "I'll be great next year." My sophomore year, it'll be great. And so no, I still kind of languishing. And then junior year, we were really good. I decided, Clubber convinced me Clubber worked for UPS at the time. He goes, "Hey, we have a dock football game. We're playing whatever dock. You should come. We need one more person." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go." Break my hand. Not my hand. I broke my knuckle right here. Not good to play basketball with. But what am I going to tell the coach? I'm like, "Yeah, coach, I broke my hand when I fell the other day. I think I broke my knuckle when I fell the other day in practice." And I tell him I broke it at UPS dock game. It didn't really matter. I mean, we weren't on scholarship or anything. So it took like 6 weeks to be able to squeeze a ball. I would try to play through it, and people would other teams would look at my hand. And just like,
Right. Yeah.
Cocksuckers. So didn't play a lot, started to play more at the end of the season. Senior year was not, was everyone who was good the year before. We had a kid who was a junior, Southside kid, good friend of mine. He was coming back and everybody else was gone. 2 kids in my class I started with, one had to go to work, still went to school, but had to go to work. The other one kind of was playing, but didn't. And I had an issue with that with the coaches. It was like, why is he here? But he was. And of 10 freshmen and sophomores. So we were not good starting out. We started like 1-13, but finished 13-1. So whatever we were, like a little under 500. And I was just like, I'm playing how I want to play, right? So is he going to sit me? I got sat one game. I wasn't started one game. And I was not happy about it. Came in, I was just like, fuck it. If I'm not going to play, I'm going to not play on my terms at this point. So just started to do things that were more natural to me than standing under the basket and not wanting to be there. And the kid was a sophomore he played overseas for 15 years. Blind as a bat. Couldn't tell you how much time was left in the game. Couldn't read the scoreboard. It was a blur. But he knew where the basket was. He's 6'6", 6'7". And I go, we were in practice one day. I pull everybody over. I go, "Listen, I don't know how to run this, but we're going to run high-low. I'm going to go up top. Jason, go on the post. I'll get you the ball every time. Get him the ball every time. Layup, 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 layup. Just a robot. Just very athletic and whatnot. But he grew late too. He came in as a guard and then ended up 6'6", 6'7". So coaches see this, and the new assistant coach is like, yeah, this works. So we're going to run it this way. It's a good idea. So they change it up or whatever. And that's when we couldn't really lose. I'd have games that were, one day the assistant coach goes, if you score 20 points and get 15 rebounds, we can't lose this game. We're playing Aurora, which was our big rival at the time. Like, all right. So I have 32 and 20 something, 32 points, 20 some rebounds. Now, again, it's Division III basketball. I'm not doing this against DePaul or Marquette or whoever, but I filled my part of the bargain. We lost. I go up to coach and go, hey, he goes, well, they needed to play better too. So it was funny. But it was fun. It was like actually fun to play something. And it was then I was just like, it felt more freedom in what I was doing. And coach was just like, and so we have a couple games left and head coach comes up to me. He goes, I'm going to try to get you a red shirt here. Like your freshman year, you didn't play. We'll figure something out. I'll call he had coached for years. So we'll get you another year. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how that helps me, so it'll be fun. I think we'd be really, really good, but it's going to just retard or delay my progress going forward. I'm going to be graduating
in the real world, right?
In the real world. And I had no idea about the floor at this point. Right. So it's like, yeah, I think let me think about it. Season ends and like 2 weeks later, you got called the athletic department or whatever called me, all the women's and men's captains into the athletic department. And they go, all right, there's the Bears charity team, Chicago Bears charity team is coming. We're playing a game in April. It's going to be 8 faculty and the 4 of you against the Bears. I'm like, oh, cool. Where? Here in this gym. I'm like, great. They go, well, there's going to be like 5,000 people here. I'm like, okay, fun, whatever. So we start this. So we start.
What year is this?
1989. So it's April of 89.
So is Peyton on this team?
No.
Because I saw him play basketball. He was pretty good.
Yeah. No. So Dennis Gentry, remember him? He was there. A couple of linemen. I have to think harder about it. I do know I dunked on Dennis Gentry, which Dennis Gentry is like 5'6". You may be able to dunk on Dennis Gentry. So.
Yeah, with a Nerf ball. Yeah.
So the game starts. We layups, whatever, and I'm like, oh my God, none of these teachers have any idea what to do with a basketball. And this one, I forget his name. English, my freshman year English professor is there, and he's like taking over. He's like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play one captain and 4 faculty. And I'm like, oh man. Okay, you guys start. So 2 minutes in, it's 15-2. I call a timeout and I pull everybody in. And I go, listen, this is my last game here. And it hasn't been a great 4 years for me here. I've learned a lot. I'm not going out like this. Here's what's going to happen. So I tell them, I go, I'm not coming out. I can't foul out. You can't foul out in this game. I'm not coming out. And neither is another captain. And then the 3 faculty, you figure out who wants to play. And one of the guys, he's in a bad tracksuit, like Ked's shoes, one of my professors, a psychology teacher. And he's just sitting back there listening, and then start playing, and 15-2 to 25-10 to get it closer at halftime. And now the crowd's kind of like, hey, this is great, or whatever. And we have no idea. It's just a different experience, right? Very rarely would play in front of a crowd, right? And when we did, and when the season was going on, we'd be playing at a Division I school, and we were supposed to lose. I mean, not that we would throw a game; it was just we weren't equipped to beat whoever it was. So we end up game ends. We lose whatever by whatever. But every time we call a timeout, or there'd be a timeout. A couple times the Bears called a timeout, which I was like, this is fucking great. We got the Bears to call a timeout. That's a win. And I wrote it was the professor, Dr. Boutreau. Dr. Boutreau, do you want to play? He goes, no, I'm just here to watch. I'm clearly, with the outfit, you are just here to watch. So another timeout. Come on, Dr. Boutreau. It's Andre. I'm not playing. Again, so game ends. They're shaking everybody's hands. All the fans are talking to all the Bears, getting autographs, and I get my bag and picking it up. And Dr. Boutreau goes, Chris, I need to talk to you after class on Tuesday. And I'm like, hey, you said you didn't want to play. And he goes, I know. I need to talk to you Tuesday. I go, okay, Dr. Boutreau, I'll see you Tuesday after class. He goes, Andre. I'm like, okay, fine. So that ends. And if we go to my sports, my athletic career, I mean, that's really it, right?
Yeah.
So I kept playing a little bit in summer leagues and whatever. I never played baseball, the sport I wanted to play. Ended up playing some softball and quit playing when they stopped pitching to me. So it got to the point where they would roll the ball to me, throw it 50 feet in the air because they didn't want me to swing the bat because the support I should have played and I didn't. So I go, it's a Tuesday, and sit in the back of class. I'm like, the fucking guy said he didn't want to play, right? What's he going to talk to me about? Bell rings, and I'm sneaking out the back, me sneaking out. And he goes, Chris, we're supposed to have a conversation. I'm like, okay, go up there. And he hands me a card. This is not known on the floor. Michael knew. And he hands me a card, and it's his dad's card. And he goes, my dad told me if I ever saw somebody handle a high pressure situation and not lose any composure or anything, that I'm supposed to send them to him. The card, I have it somewhere. His name was whatever Boutreau, deputy director of the FBI. So I'm like, what does this mean? He goes, all I have to do is call my dad and he will hire you. You will be in the FBI. And I'm like, hey, a couple of things there. One, I've never fired a gun. He goes, you'll never fire a gun. Two, I can't go to law school. He's like, no, that's a myth. That's how they keep people from joining the FBI. Yeah, most people are law students or going through law school. I go, three, I'm not going to fit in well in the field with anybody again. He goes, no, you will not be on that track. You will be in a more of a leadership role that they would groom you for, or whatever, groom's the right word or whatever. I'm just like, really? I'm like, what's it pay? It's like, no, you can say, whatever. I was like, okay. So that's in my back pocket.
All right. So we'll transition into the floor. We covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
But I have to ask this question.
Yeah.
From a 5'9" guy. All the basketball players that were on the floor, Brett Burkholder, Jeff Allen, JP, Tommy Heights, your brother, Mike Lang, and maybe there's a few more that I didn't even know. Who's the best basketball player?
The best basketball player upstairs in the Euros?
Of all the guys I mentioned, yeah, in the Euros.
The best basketball player. Let me think about that for a while.
We can come back to that. We don't have to pause here.
Yeah,
I'm partial because I'm biased. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick Tommy Heights.
Yeah, he wasn't.
He wasn't?
No. They're all better than me. Let me preface with that.
Well, I didn't throw your name in there, just so you know.
The most explosive player that I played with on the floor was Al Eaton. Remember Al?
I do.
He was in the back months.
Yeah.
He had like a 42-inch vertical.
Holy crap.
Yeah, he played at Arizona. Fucking kid could play. Tremendous athlete and a pretty good. So there were great athletes. Tommy was a great athlete. And then there were great basketball players who weren't great athletes. And then there were guys who were great athletes who could play. Al was one of those guys who was a great athlete who could play. Michael was a good, great athlete who could play. I mean, one of the stories about Michael is, so when Michael was drafted by the Knicks, got cut, and then because he went to Penn State in the USFL, the Philadelphia Stars had his draft rights, his territorial rights. So he went to a training camp with the Philadelphia Stars in the USFL to play tight end.
Holy crap.
So, but again, he was probably bigger than every tight end who was coming around. I mean, he was like bigger than Bavaro and whatever, right? So the great tight ends then. And he tells the story better than I'll tell it, but I'll try. And so they tell him that's camp's ending, and it was Jim Irsay, who was the Colts head coach, practice, whatever. And he's like, Mike, I just don't have the time to teach you. You go to the NFL, you'll be a tremendous player. I'm going to send you to Bill Parcells, right? So Michael's just like, whatever and however that conversation ended, it was basically, no, I'm going to go play ball overseas, and that was it. But he tells the story far better than I do. If you ever have a chance to talk to him about it or get him on here, he tells it far better than I do. But he does the voice, and I can't do the voice. But the best player out of that group, I would, not because he's my brother, I would say my brother. Just, he was stronger than everybody else. Was a tremendous passer. Nobody could get through him. Stronger than everybody. So his ability to score and play defense and rebound, and pass, I would go with him. Brett was difficult. Just so long.
Brett had caveman strength.
Yeah.
Like Michael, your brother, he's built to you see his deltoids and the arms. Yeah. He's a monster.
Brett is farm strong.
Yeah. He's lanky.
Yeah.
And Jeff Allen, who was a dear friend, and we did a lot of martial arts training. He said, if in a barroom fight, of all the people I know, including Mats, I'm taking Brett.
Yeah, he won't stop.
And when I told Brett that Jeff said that, he goes, oh yeah, I just hit anything that gets close to me. I don't care if he's a good guy or a bad guy. So
Brett, Tommy could move, ran the court well, played at Kentucky. I mean, I'm not dissing anybody when I say this stuff. They were just nobody was the same player, right? Where I can compare one person to the other.
Yeah, it's a hard call. I understand.
The highest recruited kid, the guy of our group, was JP coming out of Michigan. He played at Michigan, and we have a conversation with him. So, what did you think when you went to Michigan? What are you going to do when you graduate? He goes, I was going to the league. I was going to go play in the NBA, and he blew his knee out. And he has no regrets. We all have, it's what it was. But, I thought I would have told you when I was 19 or 20 that I was playing in the NBA. There's no way I wasn't. And you look at his, you see his stats in high school and whatever. It's like, fuck. How do you, 6'11", 250, 245. How do you stop it?
Tommy Hyde said that he played in a lot of these city leagues. Mm-hmm. And he said, I saw guys that they did prison time and stuff. These guys were as good as any NBA player you could ever imagine, and even better. Do you agree with that?
No doubt. I mean, growing up, I would go and watch Michael's summer league games where he's playing, the pro-am stuff. So, Michael's AAU team, his senior year in high school, right? So this is when AAU met something. It was one team per city, not 50 in the neighborhood now. Michael was the center power forward. Isaiah Thomas was the point guard. Terry Cummings was the other forward center. Walter Downing, who played at Illinois, was a junior. Doc Rivers was the other guard.
Holy crap.
And then, so every once in a while on Facebook, that class pops up. Could this have been the greatest class in the state of Illinois? Arguably, it is. I mean, they're all 60-something now, but you look at, all the names, everybody played somewhere, right? And then there were guys, so Teddy Grubbs, who went to DePaul with Brett and Jeff, he had some issues, right? And so he did not make it, but he was, those two will tell you that he was better than, everybody else in their class coming out. But yeah, so when you talk about guys on the floor and what they did and who was best, there were guys there's a kid who played in Michigan in the S&P pit, guard Thompson, JP knew him, tremendous basketball player. Pogo stick, white kid, pogo stick jumper, could shoot, and just, he wasn't big enough to play or good enough to play at the next level. I mean, obviously none of them were, because they were all on the floor, right? I mean, so when you're
that's true.
When you're brutally honest, right? Oh, yeah, they were great, but there were Tommy was close. Talked to Tommy about it, and he's like, yeah, they drafted it in the first round or second round. They spent the money on a kid out of UCLA. It wasn't any good. We were the same position, but because they drafted him in the second round, I was drafting whatever. It's a numbers game. They're going to keep the kid in the second round. He's saved the face of the GM who drafted him. But yeah, Tommy, it's very difficult to, like I said, who was the best? They were all very, very good. Like I said, and when they would play, like they would play in some tournaments as a group, it wasn't good for whoever was playing against them. It just, you couldn't. How do you compete against that? I played with them, so I wasn't supposed to play. I was just watching, and you remember Mark Stern, Seba?
Yeah.
Student friend of me, good friend of mine.
Funny guy too.
So he somehow gets himself to be the point guard of this team. So it's Michael, Tommy, Brett, Jeff, maybe Gus, Mark Stern, and some desk guy. And they have nobody who can bring the ball up the court. And I'm like, and they're just like, Seba, love him. He's just like, hold on. I go in the car, get my shoes, there's some shorts in there. Like, we got this covered. And it was just hilarious. I mean, it was so, our average size was 6'9". We'll just pass the ball up the court. And it was St. Vincent de Paul. I remember just going to the bar across the street, the 8 of us, fill the bar up, and that was fun.
All right, my friend. We covered a lot of basketball and your early life. And now the part that many of our friends want to hear. How did you get to the floor?